Hello and welcome to another episode of Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro. My name's Ian Glacken. I'm an executive consultant with Snowden Optiro here in Perth, and I'm joined again by Craig Morley. Craig's an executive consultant of again with Snowden Optiro. If you haven't seen Craig for a few years, he's been on tour with the Foo Fighters, just got back. Hello, Craig.
G'day, Ian. Thanks. It seems like ages since we spoke.
In this podcast, we're looking at some topics related to mining geology and ore control. Now, this is particularly appropriate because this week in Perth, we've got the International Mining Geology Conference, and Craig is, or probably was by the time this podcast comes out, presented a paper. So we're going to explore some of those topics. Craig has got a long experience and a long history in mining geology and ore control. So Craig, let's start with the theme that you've been championing for quite a while. That is the debt of tons and grade. Well, maybe not quite that, but essentially an increase in the other aspects of grade control or ore control. And then you call this value-based ore control. What's all that about?
Yeah, I think the key, Ian, is that words are important, and the technical disciplines all have their own jargon. And you know what we say and understand in geology, for instance, may not be interpreted in the same way by the general manager of the operation. So, you know, tons and grade on their own don't represent all the value that we can get out of our ore bodies. You know, a simple example is in iron ore, they've embraced the whole concept of phosphorus being, you know, detrimental to their product. So they don't just use the iron ore grade to decide what goes to the customer. They take phosphorus and clay into consideration as well. And copper deposits often have other things that come along for the ride, like nickel and gold. And so that adds value. And we should be considering those things in terms of, you know, how do we make that decision on value of what goes into the plant. The experience I had over the last 7 years with 7 operations is we put over $1 billion Australian in value back on the table by using those approaches. So
we're essentially talking about geometallurgy, or is it more than that?
It is geometallurgy, definitely, but it is more. There's, you know, other things to consider, such as, you know, easy examples are hardness and with which impacts throughput through the processing plant. Different metals will recover at different percentages. So, you know, it's all of those things.
Okay, great. So obviously one thing that never changes in the mining industry is money, profit, return on investment, whatever you want to call it. And obviously after things like safety and ESG, this is one of the most important things that we're concerned about. So what can the 21st century mining geologists do in this area?
Yeah, I'd like to give an example. It's got nothing to do with geology. It actually happened in my first year at university in a biology class. And it was that day when you dissect rats for the first time. And the lab facilitator picked up a rat and cut the tail off with a swipe of the scalpel. And one of the people in the lab reacted and saying, "Oh, how can you treat that animal that way?" And I've never forgotten his response. His response was, "This animal has been specifically bred for training, and I'm going to get every possible value out of educating you with this animal." And I thought that was such a great response, and I've carried that through my career. And I think as geologists, you know, we love the rocks. We're into the rocks. We love these ore bodies that we mine. And if we are going to mine them, whether it's a big hole underground or a big hole in a pit, then it's part of our responsibility to get absolutely every kind of minute portion of value out of those ore bodies that we can. So, you know, I think with the 21st century geos, extracting all that value for the ore bodies that we're the custodians of, and teamwork right across the value chain to be able to do that and have that sustainable value focus. my bias is not just for the common elements, but also the entire mining process, that it's a team sport. Geos need to be involved in the whole process. The only common thing from resource to the plant are the rocks. Everybody else is focused in their niche. But as geos in the 21st century, we need to work right across the value chain.
So we'll come on to the role of people versus machines later on, but one topic that I think you and I both have some stake in is this idea of uncertainty or simulation. What do you think of the impacts, either current or to come, of simulation with respect to mining geology and ore control?
Yeah, I see simulation as just a natural evolution of what we do. The computing power is now allowing us access to be able to look at many scenarios instead of a single scenario. And simulation is a key of that. Multiple simulations, multiple scenarios, being able to kind of look at those scenarios and the simulations and compare them to each other and say, what's the probability? What types of scenarios pop up more in those simulations, and give us a better view of what's going to happen, what's more probable. One thing I used to do when visiting mines is, people would ask, and I say, look, I see it as a tool, and I see that at some point in the future we'll be mining it 1,000 times before we mine it, because we have that compute power. And you've had more experience than me in this space. So what's your views?
Yeah, well, when it comes to simulation, there's a number of topics. One would be, I think, one of the things that you're talking about, which what I would call discrete event simulation. And this is basically simulating the mining operation. As you say, you mine it 1,000 times before you mine it. And this is common and becoming more common. And I think there's a great future in that. We talk about virtual mines or things like that. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, which I guess I'm more closely involved on a day-to-day basis, and I've waxed lyrical on it on these podcasts quite a few times, is this idea of uncertainty. And to my view, the issues are grade uncertainty, and obviously multiple grades, and that's no longer an issue, multiple grades. But I think where we're at the frontier of uncertainty is geological uncertainty. We have geological uncertainty, and that's why we have geologists. That's why geologists do the work. But I think trying to capture or to predict or to take advantage of modelling the geological uncertainty together with the grade uncertainty, I think that's the future, and that's still a challenge for a lot of operations. So we've got, from a simulation point of view, we've got a combination of simulating the operation as such, then simulating the uncertainty in the grades, and I think that's we're at the frontier in that area. So let's talk about another topic, maybe a couple of controversial topics. What do you think in the future, and let's say the next 5 to 10 years, what's the future of mining geology? Do you think we'll still need geologists or other professionals at the mine site?
So yes, definitely. I think we'll still need geologists, but it's not just geologists as well. I talk about the on sites. I have this phrase, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So that you have the geologists, the short-term or the mine planners, the mining engineers, and the processing team. And that as a team is what delivers the value on the site. It's like in a soccer team or a football team. If you have everybody in the goal area and nobody out in the field, no one will ever score a goal against you, but you'll never score a goal. So it's working as a team that's really important. Recently, my mind's been changing on the on-site, off-site thing. We're coming to a world that the oil and gas people have been working in a long time. Nobody in the oil and gas world goes down to the ore body. It's all done remotely. And there's digital twins, robots mining to plan. You have all these new technologies coming along. But there's so much compute power coming now that, modelling and improving how geologists do things and how they work and their need to be on site will change. And I think as professionals, we have to embrace that and lead it rather than let it happen to us.
Sure. No, I agree. I don't think we'll ever be in a situation where we don't have those key people. As you say, they may spend less time on site, but I think spending some time on site, particularly where you can see the ore body, and you can look at everything in a camera, but you can't see as much as you can when you wander down or underground or into the stockpiles. So look, I agree with you. Things are going to change, and we're still going to need these people. So let's just talk specifically about the role of, say, resource geologists or mining geologists. Do you think with AI that their role, their careers are under threat?
Well, I've been waiting decades to be less busy, and it hasn't happened yet. So no, I don't think they'll ever be redundant or not needed. I think it's just that the work changes. That definitely we need to still have that expertise as part of the team. The trap is to try and get AI to do things that we can already do, and not use AI to identify new opportunities and ways of looking at the data, and automate the boring stuff. I have this phrase: "Let's take the robot out of the human." That's where AI can excel, by looking at massive data sets and coming up. But AI is still going to need to be pointed and guided, and the questions provided so that logical information can come out of the data. And music is a great example of that. It's an opportunity where people are now being able to create music without instruments or without the capability to put the vocals in there. But in geology, it comes back to how quickly can we train AI to look at the vast data sets that we have, and then after that, how quickly can we come up with the next positioning and pointing of AI to help us in that space. So yeah, a lot of changes, but not
life-ending changes for geologists.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody still has to kind of be able to phrase the question for AI.
No, I agree. I think there's a number of obvious targets where AI and compute power is going to make life. Multivariate data sets is one area where we've failed to take advantage of things in the past, and I think the other area is things like QA/QC and data analysis. But as you say, I think you're always going to need somebody to point the way and to show the way to this harness this massive computing power. Okay, so that's the end of this chat on these very interesting topics. I'm sure if we come back in 6 to 9 months' time, we'll have some more to say about this. So I think that was very good. So thanks very much, Craig.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was another episode from Snowden Optiro. If you like that, please subscribe. And if you want to find this podcast or more other podcasts, you'll find them on our website. You'll find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Libsyn, or wherever all good podcasts are found. Thank you.